Everyone. You may have just picked up your M3 or even M2 or M1 iMac. I know they only have the M1 and M3 iMac, but any Mac that you basically have, and if it comes in the form factor of this is a complete beginner's guide on essentially how to use it. It's a super basic Mac to use. Luckily for you, it's not that big of a learning curve. Even if you've never used Mac OS, I'm sure you've used some computer before. It's essentially the most basic way of getting a very big display, a very good chipset, and a very good piece of software inside of something that's kind of in an all-in-one, which is very cool. Now on the exterior of the specific Mac, you can see we have just the display. Now this display is very good. It's a Retina display, very good resolution. I think it looks very good. You have white bezels across it. You do have the front-facing camera right here, which is really nice. You have a speaker set at the very bottom, which is pretty cool. You have nothing really at the top, nothing really else on the sides. At the bottom you have your base. Now this Mac does swivel, so you can actually move this display up or down depending on what you want to do. I'm going to keep it like this for the remainder of this video, but you basically have the ability of kind of doing that. Now on the side of this specific Mac, if I were to turn around, or in the back side for that matter, you can see we basically have our standard Apple logo right here. Again, nothing at the very top. Then if I go flip this thing up, you can basically see we have our port right here. Now this port is the all-in-one port. This is where you can plug this thing in. Now I already have it plugged in, I don't feel like unplugging it, but that's essentially where you just plug it in, you plug it into the wall, very basic. And then you have two USB Type-C ports at the very side here. Now at the very beginning, what I'd recommend doing, taking that USB-C cord that's within the box that you already have, so it already comes pre-included, you can go and find it, plug this specific port, this cord right into one of these ports, and I just recommend just keeping these just plugged in because you're going to need it, because the attached accessories that you get in the box are the keyboard and the mouse. You might as well go ahead and as soon as you unbox your M1, M3 iMac, your M1 or M3 iMac, go ahead and just plug these bad boys in. You're going to need to do it at least once, so just plug your keyboard in and also plug in your mouse or your Magic Trackpad, whatever you have. Just go and plug it in, just plug in both of them so they're both connected to the device. That way you don't have to go and shuffle around for them later. And like I said, I might as well just keep this plugged in, but you can go and unplug it for the time being. These are also Thunderbolt ports, so you can plug in another monitor if you want to, different things like that. These are very good ports. So now that brings us back to our iMac. Now, like I said, iMacs are very, very easy to use for the most part, so there's nothing super crazy. Another thing I'd recommend doing probably is getting used to how this iMac kind of holds up and getting some sort of dongle. With your USB-C ports that are on the right side looking at the monitor, you do have the capability of actually getting your dongles and everything connected if you want to. You also have the power button on the left side right here, so you can also just quickly sleep and wake this thing up from there. Now, that is it on the outside. Like I said, nothing super crazy. It's a very basic thing to use on the outside. Now, within the Mac software, there's a lot of good stuff here. Now, we're going to be using our Magic Mouse and we're going to be using our Magic Keyboard basically throughout the rest of this video. So I'm sure you've used some sort of mouse and some sort of like trackpad and keyboard before. But you have your cursor. If you shake around your cursor a couple times like this, it usually gets a little bit bigger, as like you can see right there. Now, at the very top right here, you actually have your specific, your status bar. This is going to be consistent basically within every application. Even if you full screen apps, this is going to always probably be here. Now you can see at the top left, we have our, Apple logo, we have our Finder, all this other stuff. At the very far right, it's kind of hard to tell. You have your time, you have your control center panel, you have your Wi-Fi search button, so many other things. And if you click on your specific time here, you get into this panel, which are just your quick widgets. So you have this type of capability here too, which is really nice. Now hopping out of this, you have your main, home screen. Now this home screen, you can have all sorts of folders and applications and other things if you want to. So that's always something that you can always look into and do if you want. Typically, I just don't really mess with my home screen too much, but you can fill in applications. For example, if we go and open up our dock, which is at the very bottom left right here, or a specific Finder, if you were to go ahead and make some sort of new application or something, you could always just go through here and add something or find something that you have and add it to your home screen if you want, if it's accessible. And you can always make shortcuts just like this. Now, at the very bottom, you do have your dock. So this is pretty normal, pretty basic stuff. You have your applications like Finder, Launchpad, Safari, so many other things. And you can always remove a specific application too by right-clicking on it. Now, for some reason, my right-click's not working. I think I have to enable it in the settings. But you can always go ahead and disable it when you have that capability set up. You can also just grab it and just drag it to the trash if you want to just delete it like that. You should be able to do that. And then you have all these other applications too. Now, at the very top left, if we go and kind of start there, you'll see your Apple logo like I've talked about before. This Apple logo is very important because when you click on it, it can bring you a few different areas. So for one, You have your About This Mac. So if you're trying to figure out basically all the information about your Mac, you can find that information right here. So if you ever want to resell it or something or find out exactly the details you have, you can always find that information here. You can also tap on it to find System Settings, which we'll get into in a second. There's a lot of stuff here we need to get into. Then we have Force Quit, Sleep, Restart, Shutdown, Lock Screen, and Log Out User. If you ever want to just quickly restart your Mac, you can always do that by tapping here rather than like holding down the buttons and all that other stuff. Now these panels do change with every application, so they're just basically more information, more settings that you can kind of tinker with. So if you ever find yourself finding like wanting more information, you can always just go through and just kind of change these things out a little bit. So that's an option you have right there too. But that's kind of that for that. Now within the application itself, like system settings, there's a lot of stuff here that we can actually get into as well. And like I said, there's a lot of good stuff here. So within the system settings, there's a lot of information. So for one, you basically have, with any application, you're going to have the exit button, minimize, and then full screen. So you can always minimize and full screen an application just by coming here. Now you're going to have your sign in. If you don't have an Apple ID signed in, you can always sign in here. Your Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and network, these things will always be configured here, so you can always just quickly get into them. These things like notifications and sound and focus and screen time, they're good if you're into that kind of stuff, but usually I don't mess around with these things at all. The general setting is one that I actually come into a lot. So if you're on your Mac, you want to go into your general settings every once in a while, and you want to click on software update. And what you're going to want to do is just update your Mac. If you have any new Mac or even any older Mac, whatever you have, I would recommend getting used to just basically going through and updating your Mac as often as possible, because there are updates all of the time and there's new features being added, and you might as well go through and update them because that's a very, very big thing you can do. Now you can also tap on appearance if you want to quickly toggle in from light mode to dark mode to auto mode. You can also change the accent colors of your Mac as well just by tapping here. Typically I kind of keep this one on, but that's another thing you can do. Under accessibility, you can change some settings. Control center, if you want to quickly change your control center options up at the very top, you have that type of capability too, which is actually very, very cool. That's another awesome capability you have. Now under Siri and Spotlight and privacy and security, those are just some more options that you can always kind of tinker with as well. Desktop and dock, that's another thing you can change. Under displays, it's just more options, like if you have built-in display, if you have another display, or if you want to change your font and how big the text is and everything else, you can kind of do that too. Like for me, if I want to go and make it smaller, if I want to make it bigger, if I want to make it whatever size, you can change it to whatever way you want to. In this case, I'll probably keep it just like this. It's a little bit easier to see. Actually, I'll probably just keep it like this. So that's another option. You can change your brightness here. I'd probably recommend turning off automatic brightness, but keeping on True Tone. On top of that, wallpaper, energy saver, lock screen, so many other things, but those are pretty much the main things within your specific settings panel. Now hopping out of this one and hopping out of this one, another final area is within Finder. So within Finder, this is your Files application. So Finder is all the way at the bottom at the dock if you go and open it up. So within Finder, you'll basically have this type of layout. Now if you want to see all the applications you have within your iMac, you can always click on Applications and you'll see this specific pop-up come up. So this houses all the applications within your specific Mac. So what you can do is you can just go through and find a certain application, you can search for things, you can realistically do whatever you want to do here. So that is actually this capability that you have here. So you can scroll through and see, QuickTime Player and system settings and utilities and so many other things across the board. So I'd probably recommend going through, getting used to this as well, and just kind of seeing all the applications. And this file manager is going to be very useful for a lot of people because you'll basically be able to go through and see new software that you downloaded or anything across the board. You'll basically be able to see that here too. So that pretty much covers it up. That is a basic introduction on how to use your iMac. It's nothing super crazy. I'm sure if you've used a Mac or any device before, you should have some understanding of how to use this specific device. It's very basic. The more you use it, the more you'll understand it, just like anything else. So that is basically it. If you have any other thoughts or questions though, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.